Hello everyone, I am Ulysses S. Grant.
Welcome to the season premiere of So You Think You Know Your History. Today's show will be separated into four segments. All in the 1860s decade. I will now be joined by my first partner, General George Custard.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, partner. I graduated from West Point in 1861.
And now joining us will be Mary Lincoln.
Hello, I'm Mary Lincoln, wife to Abraham Lincoln, and I had 4 sons, 3 of which died young.
This will bring us into our first segment.
Called the Civil War. This will bring us into our first segment called Civil War. In this segment, we will have information, instant replays, and then a commercial break. But the information must come first. The Civil War started in 1861. It was mostly started because half of the states in the United States wanted slavery because that was the main source of income, because the income was basically come from agriculture. The war started in April 1861 because Confederate soldiers attacked Fort Sumter. They thought it was theirs because it was right on the border of some of the Confederate states. And then it turned out into an all-out battle in which the Confederates won. After that, more states decided to join the Confederates because they believed that was the best country out of all of them. Shortly after this, Jefferson Davis was elected president of the Confederacy. And then he hired some of the main generals in the war, General Robert E. Lee and General Stonewall Jackson. The Union had some generals of their own, like Abraham Lincoln was the commander-in-chief, and Ulysses S. Grant. When the war first began, the Confederates held out in many victories, including the Battle of Bull Run, in which Stonewall Jackson was known for standing like a wall. After more Confederate victories led by General Robert E. Lee, the Union finally got a victory at the Battle of Antietam, which allowed Lincoln to pass the Emancipation Proclamation.
In 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation was passed by Abraham Lincoln. The Emancipation Proclamation was passed during the Civil War because Lincoln thought that this was a necessary battle strategy. Although the Emancipation Proclamation did not officially end slavery, the entire point of it was to free slaves in the southern states or their rebellious states. This was in hopes that the slaves from the south or rebellious states would come to the north and fight in their army. But because of the wording, the slaves in the north were not freed. Lincoln wasn't a fan of slavery, but he did this because he wanted to preserve the Union in the country. The Emancipation Proclamation freed 3 million slaves out of 4 million.
After suffering heavy casualties at the Battle of Fredericksburg, the Union finally got the turning point they needed in the war at the Battle of Gettysburg. We will now take you to the instant replay of the plan of the Battle of Gettysburg.
General Lee has cannons right outside of Gettysburg.
We are going to need to get past that hill, or else we are never going to win this war, General Grant.
I agree. Calling all troops. We're moving out tonight.
After winning the Battle of Gettysburg, the Union won most of the battles and eventually, in April 1865, forced General Robert E. Lee to surrender. While this was going on, General William Sherman led the Union deep into South Carolina and Georgia. This effectively destroyed the economy of the Confederates and sent General Davis on the run. In April, the war effectively ended. Shortly after this, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by a Confederate actor named John Wilkes Booth. We will now take you to an instant replay of that event.
Before we start the play of American Cousin, now introducing the President of the United States of America, Abraham Lincoln, and his wife, Mary. Sic semper tyrannis.
In May, Jefferson Davis was captured, and this effectively ended the Confederacy and restored the United States of America to its former glory. In all, there was about 600,000 deaths in this terrible war.
Now that we have finished the first segment, we will go into a commercial break.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is George Wright, the best player on the first professional baseball team, the Cincinnati Red Stockings. Get lessons in the new sport of baseball from George for only 5 cents. He will teach you how to catch. Throw. Hit. And field.
This will now bring us into our second segment called the Civil War Amendments.
What was the amendment that abolished slavery? Is it A, the 13th Amendment, B, the 14th Amendment, C, Civil War, or D, the Louisiana Purchase? The answer is A, the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment is what officially abolished slavery in the United States. We are now going into our segment about the 14th Amendment and the 13th Amendment. 13th and 14th Amendments are part of what is called the Civil War Amendments. There's 3 Civil War amendments, but only 2 are passed in the 1860s. The 13th Amendment was passed in 1865. This is what officially abolished slavery. Although this amendment doesn't necessarily mean that the black people got the same rights as the white people at the time, such as voting rights. The 13th Amendment officially states that slavery nor involuntary servitude shall be involved anywhere in the United States. The 14th Amendment was ratified July 9th, 1868. The 14th Amendment is generally about equal citizenship and equal protection for anybody born in the United States. This means that anybody born in the United States is a United States citizen. The second section of the 14th Amendment is about the appointing of representatives for every state. This is based off of population. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is about the restriction of the selection of government members such as the President and Congress members. Section 4 of the 14th Amendment states that the public debt of the United States of America should not be questioned. The fifth and final section of the 14th Amendment states that Congress has the power to enforce this amendment. The 14th Amendment is still questioned and debated today on whether it protects certain people.
Now that we have finished the second segment, we will go into a commercial break.
Are you tired of having to write everything out? You can now not waste long hours of writing with the all-new typewriter. It is really easy. You just have to put the paper in and use the adjustment knob to put it in, and then use the keys to type the words. This is available at shops for only $1.99. But if you go right now, you will get it 10% off. Cut. The end of the second segment will now bring us into our third segment called The Pony Express.
What year did the Pony Express start? A. 1890, B. 1860, C. 1867, or D. 1875? The answer is B. The Pony Express was started in 1860. Our next segment is the Pony Express.
It was started on April 3rd, 1860, and ended abruptly on October 26, 1861. It consisted of horse and rider relays between St. Joseph, Missouri and Sacramento, California. If you were wondering why it only lasted a year, there were also setbacks. It costed $5 to deliver half an ounce of mail, which was far too expensive for most U.S. citizens at the time. Eventually, the prices were reduced from $5 to $1, but that was still too much for the ordinary person. For the ordinary people who did use it, mail was printed on tissue-thin paper to keep the weight and price down. Most of its use came from government dispatches and business papers, which eventually led to the decline and end of the Pony Express.
Now that we've finished our third segment, we will go into a commercial break.
Tired of reading the same book every day? Well, now you don't have to. A new writer named Jules Verne has written an informational story with exciting action, dinosaurs, adventure, love, and death. Purchase this book for 89 cents and you will not regret reading this masterpiece. Even Abraham Lincoln likes it, so come on down to your local bookstore and get it now.
Before we move into our fourth segment, we will now go to a game show.
Alright, welcome to our game show. Today we have Ulysses S. Grant, and he's going to be competing for the survival kit. It's one of a kind. We have 3 multiple choice questions that if he answers 2 out of 3 of them correctly, he can win this survival kit. He will have 10 seconds to answer each question, starting with the first question. Who invented the typewriter? Is it A, Christopher Sholes, or B, Gutenberg?
Gutenberg.
And that's incorrect. Alright, now you gotta answer these 2 questions right, and then you can still win this. But if you get one of them wrong, it's out of the picture. Alright. Question number 2. Who was the first president? Is it A, George Washington Carver, or B, George Washington?
George Washington.
Correct. Now all you have to do is answer this last question correctly, and this survival kit is all yours. Who is the best history teacher? Is it A, Miller, B, Ken Miller, C, Kenneth Miller, or D, Mr. Miller? Or all of the above, or neither?
All of the above.
Correct. This one-of-a-kind survival kit is all yours. Congratulations.
This will now bring us into our fourth segment called The Formation of the KKK.
Following the Civil War in 1865, a group of Confederate veterans founded a social club in Pulaski, Tennessee. That became the first branch of the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan became very popular in the South and extended into almost every southern state by the end of the 1860s. The group's name Ku Klux is derived from the Greek word kaiklos, which means circle. The group's original intentions were to reestablish white supremacy and fight the effort of the Republicans to give rights to black people. In 1867, local branches of the Ku Klux Klan had a general meeting and convention to establish the Invisible Empire of the South. Nathan Bedford Forrest became the first leader of the Ku Klux Klan in 1867. His position became known as the Grand Wizard, which was above other positions, such as Grand Dragons, Grand Titans, and Grand Cyclopses.
Thanks for watching the video. Blooper time. Go.
The group's name Ku Roxanne.
Throw.
She from Malibu.
No.